I see something play out for my child that reminds me of something that was really hard, is really hard for me, particularly socially, I so desperately want to shut that down because it comes from a place of not wanting my child to suffer in the ways that I've suffered. But what it actually does is it contributes, and I think as Devon Price writes, the like many tiny rejections and social judgments that actually imparts my child's broader worldview about that there is one correct way to be. And then I
Right.
layer on the judgment of myself for doing it.
I talk with a lot of families, and a lot of times we're talking about, you know, parents wanting to make sure that the way they're talking about themselves is not reflecting things that they want to see in their kid. And I think that I think we talk about this a lot with like uh body image, and if somebody's talking about how disgusting they feel in their body and how much they want to lose weight and how much they hate how their body looks right now, and I look like their body, that's going to make me feel bad even though they're talking about themselves. And so that way, that like internalized shame really spreads to everybody else. And I want the way that I want to talk about bodies and body image or brains and how they work or anything to my kids, I want to talk about that way to myself because that's the only way they're going to learn too. Um, and yeah, it's a really, I think that's how those cycles perpetuate of, whatever, I've always hated my body, so I'm going to teach my kids to hate their body. I'm going to teach their kids to hate their body. Whereas if we can reverse that, we can stop it and change the narrative. It's really difficult to acknowledge that, like, the world can be a really hard place, and that doesn't mean you should hide these parts of yourself that might make it harder to be in the world. And I think those are really difficult things. I think we often hear that, I want to prepare my kids for the world. Stuff's going to be hard, and I want to, I want to make it easier for everybody. I want to make it easier for myself too. And it's really hard to do that without falling into the, okay, I'm gonna, conform myself and fit myself into the round hole when I'm a square peg.
Also, kids are really, um, what's the word? Perceptive. So usually they get the cue. They know. So it's about us reinforcing that. Like when we see a shift in them, like, hey, why are you uncomfortable right now? Or what's going on that's putting up your radar? I mean, often they know, just like we know, and we knew then, and we just didn't have the language for it. They know now too. And now we have the language for it, right? So we can encourage them by just like body language, cues, and allowing the conversation. And it's going to happen, uncomfortable things are going to happen all day, every day. So it's about like giving them, when we recognize the cues in them that there's something going on that they're uncomfortable with, reinforcing that, like, yeah, you do feel that, and that is whatever is happening.
And I think what you just said, like when you feel uncomfortable, if you don't have language to understand why, you make up a narrative, and that
Right.
narrative is I'm broken, I'm defective. And
Yeah.
so, like, what would it be like to say I'm uncomfortable, and there's like a differential for that?
Right.
It's like it's not just that I'm broken, like there's other things on the menu to possibly explain that, which is just like, these are not my people, these are not my people, they're talking about something I'm not interested in. Okay, I'm gonna go to another environment where I'm comfortable.
Right, because I think it's important to point out that, those narratives we make up for ourselves, that we're different, we're broken, and everybody else is doing this, and we just need to try harder. Like, those don't come from nowhere. Those come from a society that tells us that all the time. They're the narratives that society creates that then we just kind of internalize and bring to our own experience.
and there's nothing to counter it because people are not authentic.
Right.
Right. So like what comes to I have like sort of like my brain stores memories like in these little boxes and categories. So I have the social gathering bucket, right? And so all the times I've gone to social gatherings that I have felt uncomfortable at and not known what to do, and like I don't know, I'm gonna like spend like 20 minutes pouring a drink because I got nothing else to do. I gotta look busy. Like just like all those like I bet I was like in retrospect, I bet I was not the only one who felt uncomfortable, but no one says it. Like no one names it. So you look around, you're like, there's 50 people and they all look comfortable. And there's me. I'm very uncomfortable. What does that mean about me?
Mhm.
Meanwhile, the chances are everybody's uncomfortable.
Unless they have so bought into their mask, right? Like they've so bought into, the brain rules of like, this is what I do. I come in and I pour a drink and then I like talk about myself. Like, I don't know what that's like, but like I think there are people who like and I think that actually for me connects to what Devon Price wrote about this idea of like the personal shame progressing to the interpersonal shame is like I have built my mask around blocking out the things that have been taught to me are bad. That the characteristics of me, I am hiding them, and what I put forth is everything else. And so that is, I buy into that and I reinforce that and I protect that.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people joke about like, oh, I don't have my own personality. I've just created a personality from picking the pieces of all the people around me. Um, and I think that it can bring that track can really easily bring you to a place of not knowing even your like what you're saying, not even knowing yourself, who your true self is, because you've really fully gone into the other persona that you've created. And I think we see that sometimes. I talk with people when people are first learning about their own brains and learning about neurodivergence, and there can be a big grief process for a lot of different reasons, but I think one of them is I'm losing this version of myself that I used to be, this masked version, this maybe like sometimes it feels like a completely different person, and it feels like you're losing that person sometimes, and that can be a intense and a process that has a lot of grief and emotions with it.
Sometimes people have to shed relationships because it becomes too hard to like, you can't go back, you can't put it back on. And so you're either going to show up with this person that like doesn't even really know you and see what happens, or like that feels like I have too much dissonance here. I'm just gonna like new life now. Does anybody else relate to that?
Yep, I think energetically, as I've been in the process of unmasking, and I think that I can sense others' masks before, whereas when I was masking myself more heavily, you don't even realize it or notice it. And now I think that I can see when others are unmasking, and that I can really hone in on the transparency and authenticity of the true self. I don't know if anyone else has felt the energeticness of it too.
I have chills right now applying this structure of like personal shame, interpersonal shame, global shame. Like, I think that when I spot a mask, it feels unsafe to me. And I have a hard time engaging now because I also like energetically like perceive that. I'm like, I don't know where I stand with you because you're fake. And I have put that in a bucket. And it's not and I think that's what Devon Price wrote about. Like, don't do that. Like, don't do that. It's that we share this with most people on the planet. So, but it's involuntary, it's automatic, it's limbic, it's just, but like, okay, now I'm aware of it. Can I zoom out and recognize like we are sharing this struggle? Can we just name the thing? And if we can name the thing, that gives us a chance to reimagine.
Mhm.
Yeah, because if you
And
put
I
them in
think
the
in that
unsafe bucket, you might, if you put them in the unsafe bucket, you might miss the magic.
And they may miss the magic too.
Right, because you're not open to.
I think that it's it's also acknowledging that unmasking and showing up as your true authentic self is not safe for everybody in every situation. And we want to make the world a better place to be able to, so people are able to do that in every part of their lives. And I guess maybe it's reducing the shame around sometimes masking and sometimes, showing up as a mass version of yourself to be able to get the thing done, whatever that is. That, it's not a complete moral failing necessarily if you do that sometimes, or if you do kind of put those up sometimes.
Absolutely. I might edit this whole thing out, although we see my trend about that. So I'm doing this cross-class dialogues class through Think Again, and I am finding I am masking so heavily. I'm not masking my neurodivergence or my disability. I talk about that all the time. But I am so consumed with how I'm being perceived in that space that every single detail of what I share or don't share, I mean, I'm exhausted after that class. And that's how life used to be, like all the time. And it's not a moral failing to mask. It's like your limbic system just like makes you stay out of the chaos by hiding anything about myself that is anything more than like the neutral, like what I have decided or society has taught me is a neutral thing, which gets in the way. It gets in the way of connection.
I think that if we can show up as our authentic selves, those who are not usually either disappear from the scene or they find themselves wanting to open up and move towards it. Because often when you show up as your authentic self, the ones who are not showing up as their authentic selves they disappear. They're gone from the conversation, from the room, because it's terrifying. It's terrifying. So it's actually, you may feel terrified too, but they feel more terrified. That's been my experience,
Absolutely.
it doesn't make it easier. None of it's easy, but it's definitely, I think, easier to show up when you know you're being your true self.
And it's hard when I think to Sierra's point, like you may not even really know what that is.
Right.
Like, who is my true self? I don't know. I don't know. Um, and maybe it starts from a place of like just even recognizing like when do I feel safe and comfortable, when do I not, and like reflecting on the patterns of that. Like,
I think that's why it's important to like continually, I guess, continually outreach to people. I'm thinking like from an organization sense, but like just continue to have that openness of, knowing that people are going to be at a place where they're ready to engage in a community like that at different places, and having it be like a continued open thing. I think we talked similarly about, when somebody's in burnout, and a really nice thing can be like, I like being offered to do things with people, even if most of the time I'm going to say no because I just can't. But it's nice to continually be offered and know that if I say no, that doesn't mean I'm not going to be offered to do that again, or I'm not going to be able to offer to be engaging in that again. And I guess just having that openness of, if or when you're ever ready to join, come on in.
absolutely. Like, it's not like the offer expires. Maybe the one more thing we can talk about, just like, because I think our folks at Brain Club, like, you know, who are like stuck in the trenches, and we see sometimes when we talk about these topics, we see in the chat, like, well, I don't know how to tell people that I'm too tired to hang out with them. Like we're at this place, right? Where I don't even know how to get started. Like, I know that it's just like, I have to do the thing. People expect me to do the thing. Where do people, like, how do people start?
I like to think about like it doesn't necessarily have to be all or nothing. Like, what part of your life can you show up as your true authentic self in, even if that's, you know, one brain club once a week, or one person in your life, or one aspect. You know, I think we talk about this with like with gender diversity, and with the idea that, you know, you, in the process of coming out, you may start by just coming out to your family and friends at first, and not coming out at work for a year or so until that feels more comfortable. And that's okay to kind of do it in steps sometimes, and um identify those safe places and those safe people, even if it's a really small group, or even just if it's by yourself.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point about Brain Club, even like the group medical appointments. That's like where your confidence is going to come from, you know, it's like being in a room with people that are having the same struggle, which will build your confidence, which will have you show up in other spaces that is not so terrifying. Um, I think that's a huge part, is like building confidence. And then you can say, hey, I'm feeling like introvert today, I'm feeling extrovert, you know, whatever the language you want to use is. And it's like, it's no big deal. And people be like, oh, I get it. You know, it's not, and we're not rejecting you. It's not that I don't want to go to your thing or show up at the meeting. It's, you know, I'm just taking care of myself.
Right. I don't have spoons. Yeah,
Right.
normalizing that.
Right.
I think what helps a lot of folks in group medical appointments is to explicitly be told that there are other people who feel uncomfortable. Like, you feel uncomfortable, there's a lot of people who feel uncomfortable. In fact, that's like why we made this preview video, or why we wrote this agenda, or like, because this is like a thing. And oh, okay. Because there's this assumption, kind of like me going to the terrible dinner party. There's this assumption that everyone else looks like they're comfortable, and that I'm the one left out. Nobody wants, like, that feeling feels so bad, so I'm just going to avoid. I'm going to avoid. I'm going to withdraw from the things that make me feel that way.
Yeah. It's like building muscle memory then, right? When you show up in the group medical appointments, or you show up at the Brain Club, and you're like building your muscle memory, like, oh, this is a safe place. And then you recognize what safe places are. And yeah.
Your body recognizes what it feels like to be safe
Mhm.
and comfortable and your authentic self, and not masking.
Yeah. And then even if you are in an uncomfortable space, your muscle memory, your mind will remember what it feels like in your body to be in a safe place. And then you can carry that with you.
Absolutely. And because you know that there's this difference now, because before maybe you've never actually felt safe.
Mhm.
Before it's just like, oh, like social interaction, it's all like that. What that is, it just, that I feel so awful because there's something wrong with me, so I hide my true
Mhm.
self. And but really now there's this distinction. There's some situations where I feel comfortable, and some situations where I don't. And I'm
Right.
the same person in either way. So what does that mean? It means that the environment influences how I feel.
It's not about that I'm broken, that something's wrong with me, that I might feel uncomfortable right now. It's like, what is the environment around me? And can I trust my limbic system and be okay if it's saying unsafe or safe? And trust my intuition. And I think it's a process, you know, getting used to trusting yourself, since we're so used to not trust, at least for me, I'm not used to trusting myself. It's been a process.
Well, I think that's part of this whole personal shame conversation, around not only do I not trust myself, but I've taught myself that my intuitive drive is wrong. And in fact, I've been taught to hate it, loathe it, blame it for all kinds of things. And so we have this brain body disconnect where it's like, well, just like stuff it, stuff it, stuff it. Because it's not normal. It's not normal. Like, stop being afraid, stop being concerned, stop being anxious, like just stuff it, stuff it. And we wonder why we lose touch with intuition.
I think it's, the same process as somebody who spent a lot of my life dieting and a lot of my life very intentionally ignoring hunger cues and pushing those down. It's no wonder that I can't sense those now. Like it's no wonder that, I have a hard time trusting my gut or feeling my instincts or whatever that is, because those have been pushed down for so long. My gut says I don't want to do the thing, and I push myself to do it anyway.
That resonates with me. Yeah. Yeah. So it's a process. It's a process of just like, what would it look like? What would it look like to go with intuition and see what happens? Like, you might overcall it, you might overcall it like a lot, but I think it's like practice. It's like what Olivia said about muscle memory. Like, you actually have to practice. Like, all right, well, my gut says do this, and I'm gonna do that. And you do that enough of the time, and it becomes a thing where like, ooh, I'm gonna go with that, because I think, it's like recovering from shame. Like, yeah, we do this in community. We do this by hearing that other people are navigating this, but the intuition thing, like, that is also, I think, part of like, it's part of the healing process.